He is Andrew Brandt. You probably recognize him from his days in the front office with the Green Bay Packers, also a former NFL agent, now a writer, podcast host, the executive director of the Morad Center for the Study of Sports Law at Villanova University. I've never felt more inferior as a human being than right now talking to you, Andrew Brandt. I mean, do you have a free moment in your life?
No, great to be with you. And I always say that I have a lot of jobs, so I don't have to have a real one. That's always the plan, right? So I was with, back as you mentioned, 10 years, and those were long days. But I feel like I get to do more now and have a little more autonomy and see my kids and do my fitness and have all these things. But it's really the same thing. I'm trying to break down complex issues in legal and business areas of sports, whether it's through podcasts, through writing, to TV, radio, podcasting, and, of course, teaching my students. So I think it's something, my third chapter, my career, I was an agent for many years. Then I was a team executive. And now just trying to give back. I can't cure cancer or anything, but I can give back knowledge and perspective that few people have.
Well, and you have so much of it, undergrad at Stanford, grad school at Georgetown, and upon doing some research, I realized that you worked with a friend of mine, David Falk, in the early days. That must have been a wild ride, huh? Pro serve there.
Yeah, I worked with David in the beginning of my career, and what was interesting is, and I tell a lot of young people, you got to find your path, because I was an agent apprenticing for David Falk, who was at the time, maybe even still, one of the great basketball agents, and had Michael Jordan and had all these great NBA players. But I saw that we had a few football players that weren't getting a lot of attention because he had Michael and all these other guys. So I became, at that moment, a football agent. And I started finding my path representing NFL players, and that led to switching sides a couple times into management. But I tell young people all the time, you may get into a job, but then you see in the corner of your eye the real path for you. I was not going to be making my mark in basketball because we had so many people there, but I saw football, and that's sort of how I transitioned.
Well, let's talk about this agent thing for a minute, because Lamar Jackson almost taken kind of a victory lap, got a great deal with the Ravens once it was all said and done. 5 years, $260 million, $185 guaranteed, but it's not the fully guaranteed contract that he was searching for. And there's been a lot of debate around the fact that he didn't have an agent negotiating on his behalf. There were, according to various reports, different people who are helping him, including the Players Association. What was your take now that it's all, or what is your take now that it's all said and done, of Lamar's situation and how it ended up playing out?
Yeah, first of all, one of those reports was that I was helping him, and I was not. So I wasn't one of those people. If he had called, sure, I would have helped, but I did not. So I think this is one where it was a 2-year saga that was complicated by the Deshaun Watson deal. I probably think that Lamar Jackson went into this before March a year ago, saying, I'm just going to try to get the most money I can, and basically come out with the best average and the best deal I can get. March 2021 brought the Deshaun Watson deal, the first fully secured deal in the history of the sport, more like an NBA and Major League Baseball deal. And Lamar, to his credit, pushed on that. He really pressed the envelope on that. Now, Russell Wilson got a deal in the interim. Kyler Murray got a deal in the interim. Jalen Hurts got a deal in the interim, and they were all traditional structures. 2 years, maybe third year with some security, and then it's all on the come. No one is able to follow the Watson precedent, and neither was Lamar. At the end of the day, he took the best deal out there, and it was really a trade-off. He got the win, as you suggested, on the average, an average of 52 a year, the best average ever, and a better deal than Hurts because it's a 5-year deal. Hurts is 5-year plus the existing year 6-year deal. But at the end of the day, it's not the Watson guarantee, and I think, Dan, we're kind of left where we're going to look back in 10 years and say, hey, remember that Watson deal? because I don't think we have any precedential value of it anymore, and that's a little bit sad for the players, but the owners have fought this very hard, whether collusion or not collusion. So Lamar ends up with a great deal if he continues to play where he is. They have the leverage in years 4 and 5 if they want to move on, if they want to lower it, if they want to use their power of a non-guaranteed year.
Well, it is interesting because I hearken back to a conversation I had with Kirk Cousins right after he left Washington, signed with Minnesota, got the fully guaranteed, I believe it was a 3-year deal.
Yeah,
it was the first fully guaranteed multi-year deal for a quarterback in NFL history. And I knew him a little bit from our Washington days, and I said, dude, you just changed the game. This is unbelievable. He goes, but I didn't. He goes, I didn't. Aaron Rodgers signed a contract. Matt Ryan have signed a contract. Neither one is fully guaranteed. To me, that was the window, especially when you had guys like Rodgers and Ryan in their prime who had all the leverage in the world. And obviously the Deshaun Watson contract's an outlier. But if we didn't get to it after the Kirk Cousins deal, Cousins is getting a 3-year fully guaranteed. Good NFL quarterback, not great NFL quarterback. Do you think we'll ever be to that point?
Here is the lesson, and here's the difference between Cousins and all those other guys, and sadly, between Deshaun Watson and these other guys. And I'll explain that in a minute. Free agency. Free agency is the best determinator of value for athletes in any sport. It's not even close. If you can get to free agency, you've got the cards. Aaron Rodgers did a deal 2 years before free agency. Matt Ryan, 2 years before free agency. Lamar Jackson got close, but they got the tag. The tag is the determinator there. Jalen Hurts, a year from free agency plus a tag. Russell Wilson, 2 years from free agency. Kyler Murray, 2 years from free agency. Kirk Cousins had it. And by his own bad behavior, which just hurts me to even say it, through his own bad behavior, Deshaun Watson created free agency. The Texans didn't want him, and they had an auction. So I think this is the problem here. NFL players, unlike NBA and Major League Baseball, maybe it's the teams. They just don't get there. Part of it is the franchise tag, but part of it is NFL players taking deals early, like Jalen Hurts just did. You know, he could have rolled the dice. Is Joe Burrow going to take a deal, or is he going to roll the dice? Justin Herbert, are they going to roll the dice? But NFL teams are smart. I was there. You throw a bunch of money at a young player, especially on a rookie contract, they're not going to wait for free agency.
And it is because that you want the injury guarantee. You want that guaranteed bag, even if it's going to be a little smaller, just in case you tear an ACL or you have a Bo Jackson type hip injury. So that's what makes it different.
Yeah, I would push back there, especially on quarterback, though, because to me the Dak Prescott deal disproved all that.
That's a good point.
In a contract year, he broke his foot and got what I think is one of the best quarterback deals ever, especially at a 4-year deal worth $40 a year. So, you know, teams will do that. I did that. Like, you better sign, you can get injured, but players need to be a little stronger.
Well, quarterbacks are different, although we pay a lot more attention now to the head injuries, right? You know, we see that Tua was actually contemplating retirement before he, signs a second deal. He's obviously not going to now. Again, I alluded to the fact that I'm a Washington, D.C. guy. I was raised there in the Maryland suburbs.
Me too.
Oh, you were? I did not know that.
DC, born and raised, Washington, D.C., Chevy Chase, Maryland.
God bless you. I was in Bethesda, grew up as an adult, grew up in Gaithersburg, and grew up going to RFK Stadium with my grandfather, and lucky enough to come back and work at the NBC affiliate there and cover the then Washington Redskins, and did the coaches show and a few other things, and got to know inside a little bit. And as I'm sure a lot of people in the area are very anxious for this sale to finally go through. Can you shed on any light on when this Josh Harris deal, assuming that is the one that actually ends up closing, is going to happen there in the DMV?
Yeah. I mean, you and I share a lot with that. I grew up with going to those RFK games with my dad. Was one of the great childhood memories, and
So
those
awesome.
teams that always had success. And yes, as everyone knows, the ownership has turned a lot of people off. I hear from family and friends, but it is happening, which I said a year ago. I'll believe it when I see it, and now I'm believing it. It is happening. And yes, it looks like Josh Harris, the owner of the Sixers, the Devils, and soon to be the Commanders. I think the timeline is soon. The May meeting is the big deal for NFL in terms of financial issues. Everyone focuses on the March meeting because everyone's there. The coaches are there. But the May meeting, which I think is the 23rd or 4th, is the one where these issues really come out financially and ownership and approvals of minority owners and things like that. So I would target that date. And there's a finance meeting, which is the group of NFL owners that really dig into the numbers in early May, like I think in next week. So I would say end of May. Now, I hear reports that the Canadian investor's still in it or someone else is coming in it. I'm pretty sure it's going to be this group: Josh Harris, Mitchell Rales, another DC guy, and of course Magic Johnson. So I can't believe I'm saying it. It's going to happen in late May, I believe.
It seemed like an impossibility for a good portion of the last decade that the Dan Snyder reign will finally come to an end in the DMV, the District, Maryland, and Virginia. All those Washington football team, Washington Commanders, formerly Washington Redskins fans. Mr. Brandt, thank you very much. It was fun to catch up. I really appreciate the time. I'm a big fan of all the work that you do. As anybody who's listening to the show today can tell, I'm a big fan of the business side of sports. We've been talking NIL and all things business in the NFL with you. So it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dan. And I know people are asking. I have a newsletter, so you can go to andrew-brandt.com and sign up for that. And then I do the reels on Instagram at Andrew Brandt too. So just adding to the group of things I got going.
And of course the Business of Sports podcast with Andrew Brandt as well on all podcast platforms. Andrew, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.